Today on the 9 to 5 podcast, I got an old friend of mine, Tom Percy from back in the neighborhood. How you doing today, Tom?
Not bad. I'm doing good, man. How you been?
I'm all right, man. You know, it's quarantining and shutting things down and people getting elected president. So it's a busy time in the world right now.
I'm so happy right now, man. Like I was saying, I got out of practice this morning. I literally go look at my phone. It was like blowing up. Everyone hit me up about like the election results. I was a little bummed I didn't get to see it. Like I was like so focused on it all week. Like the one day I had like 3 hours that I couldn't just stare at my phone or the TV, and that's when it happened.
You and everybody else. Everybody else were, I think,
I'm happy, man.
Pleased with the results of the election. Even if you have a certain affinity for politicians, as I do, I think you don't want crazy people with that amount of power. So even if I don't like politicians, I think, come on, that other guy's it's a little much.
Well, that's my whole thing. Like I was not like I love politics. Like I love watching. I love paying attention. I like being informed, but I've never liked politicians.
Sure.
Like like people. To me, it always looks like a power grab. No matter what side you're for or against, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, at the end of the day, like, I still vote. And I'm going to vote based off of policy, what you're talking about.
Sure.
But, like, this election was completely different for me. Like, I was not voting on any of that at this point. It was literally whatever is going to get motherfucker out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I know a lot of people took that stance. And I have some other, podcast stuff that we could definitely at some point get into the election and the polls. But today on the 9 to 5 podcast, we are going to try to get into, us 9 to 5ers, and it's a beautiful kind of segue from politics because I think they don't really understand what it's like to be
not at all
9 to 5er, right? I'm not sure Joe Biden or Donald Trump really even could understand what it's like to ring somebody out of the cash register and stand on your feet for 8 hours, right? Like those are things that I think the country as a whole and the leadership of this country need to hear more from those everyday folks that are doing the jobs that keep the country going. So how we start the 9 to 5 podcast is we allow our guests first to say, give me your worst 9 to 5 story, right? So last week we did this. I had a person tell me they quit on the spot because their manager told them they don't know how to fucking fold clothes. So those types of stories are the types of stories we're looking for. So give me your 9 to 5, worst horror story you could think in all the years you've been working.
I mean, I've never really worked like a traditional hours job. Like me being at Starbucks is like my first like real retail job. But like the worst moment I ever had with an employer was when I was an RA up in college.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I had an RD. Well, the entire school was weird in terms of ResLife. Like I loved my education side, but living on campus, that whole thing was ridiculous.
Yeah,
a lot of things I can go into, but like it was senior night my junior year, so pretty much all the RA's job to do that night is just make sure the seniors don't die and make it to graduation the next day.
Exactly.
Like they ordered food. I showed up like maybe 5 minutes after they said to be there, and like it was gone. And like literally the guy looked at me like, well, you should have got here earlier. And then like there was like 2 pizzas sitting there, and I noticed there was like 2 untouched. There's one girl who has like an allergy to like red dye, so they ordered her just a cheese pizza, no sauce, no nothing. 2 full large pizzas. This girl is 5'1" and like $1.10.
Clearly she wasn't gonna eat them.
Yeah, she was not eating 2 whole pizzas. I wanted like 2 slices, and that was it. And he literally was like, you can't have that. She was like, that's for Ari. And I was like, she's gonna eat 2 full pizzas. And then that's when he was like, well, I don't know what to tell you, man. You should have gotten here earlier. And I was like, all right, fuck this, whatever, I'm gone. I was like, walked out.
Exactly.
That night, he decides he's gonna like try to come up and like talk to me. And he, for like a millisecond, I like considered it, but like because I saw him like beelining it for me that night, and like I knew it was it. And he starts like snapping at me to get my attention.
Yeah.
I turned around and I was like, yo, Brian. I was like, you get any closer, I'm gonna beat the shit at you. Get the fuck away from me. I was like, I'm done with you. Like it was.
Yeah.
I wound up also getting into it with like the head of ResLife that night too. It was bad.
Yeah. So you get those people with the power, and I think that's what a podcast like this really aims to like draw attention to, is that sometimes you give, for lack of a better term, a weenie real power, and then they tend to really abuse it.
Oh, 100%. That's exactly what this was, man. Like this guy, like he'd been trying to get into like like that college, but he was like he'd been trying for a while to get like moved up. Like he eventually
Exactly.
wanted to be like the head of ResLife somewhere, blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, he's 34,
Yeah.
and you're still an RD. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
graduate assistant role. Like you already
Yeah.
have your graduate degree, man. Like this is all you do now. Like what are you doing?
Yeah. So he probably felt a certain type of way, or felt like he wanted to exert his certain type of power. And I think for us little people that have those roles, I don't think we have a problem having those roles. But it's reporting to a person like that really puts you in a mindset that is like, well, I don't really want to deal. I don't want to deal with you, and I don't feel like I should have to.
Yeah,
So like the other part about, you know, those type of individuals getting power. Now I don't know if it's that gentleman who would necessarily make this call, but the other question I always ask my guests is, how do you feel employers take care of their employees? Do you feel as a working person in a corporation, in a fairly big corporation as the one you work in, do you feel like your employer takes care of you? Are you making a living wage, right? There's this whole minimum wage and
yeah.
living thing. Talk to me a little bit about that. And
So talking Starbucks specifically, because that is my current 9 to 5. I am like I also work as like a sub TA in the school district right now. I'm going back for that. That's hopefully what I'm going to turn my career into. But my big breadwinner right now is Starbucks. Starbucks for me personally, because I hate big corporations, conglomerates. Like I don't like it. I don't like the fact that you can make billions of dollars sitting on your ass pushing papers, where like the people who work in 10 plus hours breaking their back. Like, you know what I mean? Like I refuse to shop at Walmart until Amazon started paying their workers like the $15 minimum like entry fee. Like I refuse to use Amazon. Like I'm one of those people.
exactly.
Starbucks for me has always been one of like the pillar corporations. And like I was actually talking with another one of my partners about it too. And I was like, they're still a corporation. Like, because Starbucks, what they do, like, little history into Howard Schultz, the guy who made Starbucks Corporation, because he actually wasn't the founder of the original store. That was a group of other guys. He wound up like becoming business partners with them, like in the beginning, opened his own chain of cafes, and then when they were losing their business, they were selling. He bought their business because he liked their product and he liked their logo, like their aesthetic, their logo. He liked the whole kit and caboodle of it.
Sure.
Bought them and then transferred all of his previous cafes into Starbucks and then grew the company that we know now.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in literally a project in, I'm pretty sure Brooklyn or maybe the Bronx, definitely New York.
Mm-hmm.
But like his dad was a Korean war vet, wound up getting yellow fever. Oh. So his dad struggled to keep a job because he couldn't afford health insurance. He had a pre-existing condition. Back then, he was definitely not getting coverage. But he couldn't stay at a company long enough to then earn benefits because of his sickness. So it was a big, Howard Schultz is like one of those, bootstrap stories people like talking about. Like, he worked his way through college. He played ball. Dude, he played ball at, I'm pretty sure he went to Northwestern or Northeastern. Like Northwestern, Northeastern. I'm not. Yeah. I wrote a paper on him like 4 or 5 years ago, so my facts are a little fuzzy. But
yeah,
played ball for a year, worked his way through college. All the stuff like made it.
The feel good stuff.
But growing up, seeing that like one of his big things, one of the reasons why I love working at Starbucks is they offer us health insurance.
That's a big deal.
You work at, I think it's like a 16-hour minimum a week, and you qualify.
Beautiful. You
have to be working with the company for 6 months, But once you get through, and that I love, and that's because like he grew up with his dad and seeing, you know what I mean. But just recently, and this is why I'm actually super happy to be working at Starbucks right now. They just released a memo as of, I think the date was December 14th. Mm-hmm. Because of everything we had to do with the pandemic, like we stayed open. Most Starbucks in the area, like most of our drive-through stores were open. Mm-hmm. Like when we did close a few stores, like they offered essentially like payment just to stay home.
Sure, hazard pay, which that's a question I had.
Yeah, like they were paying people, like the people who chose to stay home for the 3 months, like during the first big hit of COVID. got like, I think it was whatever their pay rate was, and it was if you were working 15 hours a week is what they paid you weekly.
Cool.
So it was still nice.
Yeah.
But what they just did recently is they're doing a minimum 10% pay increase for anyone who worked, who got hired before like September.
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm a 3-year employee there now, I'm actually getting a minimum of 11.
Nice.
So, they're going to be doing, and other things they were talking about were like tuition assistance, and it's all just as like you guys worked your asses off, put yourselves in danger, working with all the, so here you go. So that I love. I think it's awesome.
That's important. That's important. I think that's,
like I said, I'm getting 11%. They got a couple million, but it's better.
Yeah, the margins don't always work out.
Like I said, the margins never work, and that's why I don't like corporations. But like one of my friends said, he was like, it could have been worse. They could have gave us nothing. And I was like, that's exactly true. Like at least there's I'm trying to think of the right word, like an acknowledgement and an appreciation of what we do. You know what I mean?
Monetary too. Now I'm not just talking about a pizza party. I'm talking about a monetary contribution to my life to tell me that you appreciate me, which a lot of corporations and a lot of these businesses are not providing for their employees.
Like, and even before this though, like yearly we would get like incremental pay increases the longer you work there. Like, so Starbucks is definitely, like I always said, like if you're especially like with the kids in the high school, like my football player and stuff, like you're looking for like a summer job, a part-time job, like Starbucks is definitely the way to go, man.
Exactly. And it's worked out for you.
Part of it is you got to eat a little bit of shit from the customers. It's worth it in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now I like that you brought that up. So they did provide you with some sort of hazard pay, because that was a brilliant segue to like my next point is, how do you feel about us, the retail workers? And I think you put it perfectly. We are risking our lives, right? So I work at a place where there are a lot of students. And if any of those students go home or do what students do, go to a party and then come interact with me because they need help, I'm risking my life to help them get the things that they need. And so how do you feel about those corporations being forced, maybe from a federal level, to say, hey, you have to have some sort of monetary contribution to your employees because of the times that we're in?
I mean, ideally, I would love to live in a world where it didn't have to be a forced thing. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't we all?
Like, I feel like human beings should just be good to one another.
Sure.
But it's one of those iffy questions, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely for it, because at the end of the day, like something's got to be done. Like, nurses, firemen, policemen, retail workers, like all these people, work through this stuff. You know what I mean? Like they deserve like something.
Sure.
But then, getting into politics a little bit, then, devil's advocate, well, how much interference is too much? You know what I mean?
Yeah, separation, government, big getting away from the government.
That's why I always call for people to step up more than anything else, man.
Sure. No, that's an interesting point. And I think, so like when you talk about the person who's at the head of Starbucks, no sort of governmental force had to come and make him do the things for his employees. He just understands that those are the right things to do.
Yeah, no. And I'm pretty sure Howard Schultz has stepped down, but like he put in like, a culture of that. Like the people now who are the higher ups running the whole thing are also of this same mindset of, community, give back, like they call us partners because we all get stock options,
Yeah.
Like that's their whole play. That's their whole
That's a culture, right? And that's, I think, and people are going to say, well, Starbucks is small, or my point is, and maybe forced is not the right word. I would like to say, kind of like you said, the humanity of it. Like these people can't live off some of these jobs. They can't live off your wages. And so that's a brilliant segue to my next question is, what do you think about the reality of what I think America is that people, there's no longer an American dream. People aren't just like, I'm going to go, I'm going to have one job, family, and I'm going to be able to buy a house off of that, right? We are living in a very transformative and different time maybe than our parents grew up in. So I'm curious as to your thoughts of, what do you think about, working right now in the concept to, some people have said, and I think I would be inclined to agree, that you can't survive in America anymore unless you have at least 2 jobs.
No, 100%. Like I'm in that boat. I'm working 2 jobs. Hopefully once the football season starts, I'm going to be hired and I'll be a paid coach this time. I won't be volunteering my time. So that'll be a third income. That'll be great. But yeah, no, like the way I see it, man, like the middle class is gone. Like there's poverty, there's living poor, there's like that sliver of the remaining middle class that likes to think themselves the upper class, and then there's the upper class.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like most people I know aren't like, this, I'm talking like, and families, like people in their 40s, 50s, like, just renting or just bought a house, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And they've been working constantly and decent jobs too, but like making good money, but it's just not the same, man. Like for every inch, like the pay goes up, like minimum wage goes up, the cost of living goes up by a mile.
Exactly. We can't catch up.
And that's why I always get into this argument. Like people talk about like, cutting taxes, trickle down economics, all the, they're like, well, if you raise the taxes on rich people and then, your rent goes up by this much, you can't get mad. I'm like, no, I can still 100% get mad. That guy can just live without that much money.
Exactly.
His life, sorry, he won't be able to afford that one really nice sports car he wanted. He might have to get the model under it. I'm still driving a 10-year-old, car like that's almost on its last leg.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, if him not getting his really nice sports car helps me get 5 more years out of my Dodge, I really don't care.
Exactly.
Because he's not going to notice it nearly as much as I'm going to notice it.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in that boat.
And that's humanity, right? And that goes back to that humanity aspect. And so you would agree, that's my next question is, do the wealthy or whatever class system I think we want to think we have, because I don't think anyone knows anymore. I think the gap has grown, however you want to classify it. But do that 1%, 2%, 3% of individuals have an obligation to the country and to the people that are beneath them? I would say that they do. What do you think?
I mean, on an individualistic level, no, because we all got free will. We can do whatever we want. They don't have to do anything.
Sure.
If you want to consider yourself a decent human being, you might want to start doing things that could benefit more than just yourself. But they don't see it like that. You know what I mean? Like
free market.
I don't know what it is about like me and Ann were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Like she's obsessed with Hoarders. Like she loves that show.
Yeah.
It freaks me out, man. I feel bad for the people who suffer with it.
Yeah, it's tough.
But we were joking around, and I was like, I swear to God, like these like billionaires, like like that, like all these crazy people with all this money, like I think they have like a form of hoarding. Like I think you get to a level of wealth where it actually starts to give you a mental disorder.
Sure.
Because like the way they are with their money is ridiculous. Sure. Like honestly, I'm of the mindset where I'm more not concerned about the minimum wage. I think there needs to be a maximum wage.
That's a
like I think once your net worth hits $1 billion, you get a nice shiny trophy sent to you from the U.S. Treasury Department that says, congratulations, you won capitalism. And then every other red cent you make after that goes to different public works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Military, policing, social, social work, mental health,
whatever.
Go fund things.
Sure.
And then again, your net worth drops under that. Start earning it back, and then you'll get another nice little trophy, and then continue.
Exactly.
But you don't need $10 billion to survive.
Probably not.
Like,
or to live comfortably.
Exactly. Everyone around me, all of my friends, most of their families need $100,000.
Gotta have it now.
Like literally, like, yeah. And I always joke around because people are like, oh, well, money can't buy happiness. And it's like, I appreciate the sentiment. I get where you're coming from, and I like it.
Yeah.
But there's not a single problem that in my life or in anyone close to me's life that I can think of that a cool $100,000 couldn't fix immediately.
Agreed.
Like immediately.
And that's the tough part. And I think
That would make me happy.
there is a it'll make me happy too. I get what you're saying. There's a fine line, and to say like, I'm not trying to force you and you earned it, and it's capitalism, it's a free market system, but there has to be, and I mean there's not, but there should be, there's gotta be a place where someone has to step in. And I don't know if government's the appropriate entity.
But this is the other problem though, is there are government systems that are set like you know what I mean? Like the stock market's the big one.
Oh yeah.
That people cheat on that all the time, man.
Exactly.
It's crazy. Especially considering that the SEC, the government agency that is assigned to essentially police the stock market and make sure it's being run fairly.
Exactly.
They have no arresting power. You know this, right?
I do.
They can't arrest anybody for anything. They do investigations, take their findings over to the FBI, which is run, you know, you got the director of the FBI, but he answers to a Senate subcommittee. Mm-hmm. And who is financing the election boards for all of these senators on either side of the political parties?
Wall Street.
And all the people making money through their, you know what I mean? So it's a joke. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be so bad at white collar crime or rip off the wrong people to actually get caught.
I agree.
Like Madoff, like he was doing great. He started ripping off the wrong people. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, oh, okay, you want to come after my money now? I got you. Okay.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
where do we go? Like you mentioned Bernie Madoff, and I'm like, that's those types of crimes I feel like are much more frequent than we would know of.
Oh yeah, because they're the ones getting the least amount of attention from law enforcement.
Exactly. Non-violent crime, and it's and you know what? Maybe they kicked in a little bit to the police commissioner.
Hard to find evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough.
Guys, especially like the accountants, like they know numbers.
Yeah, they do.
You know what I mean? Like they do very, and like you got to sit there and read. Like it's a lot of time and effort. Like you pretty much have to know going in that you're gonna find something.
Yeah.
Like, you need to almost know what you're looking for to catch it.
And I like I said, I can't even imagine what those types of individuals deal with, or the type of scams and schemes and loopholes that are found at that level of money making. And you know what? I don't even care, but it becomes a problem when that gap grows and the people that are on the bottom are having to suffer. Or like you said, you're going to go buy your 7th Bentley and then look at us and say, well, you got to work harder. So something about that seems very contradictory and wrong.
Dude, I used to see it all the time. Like my first job right out of graduating college, I got hooked up with a friend, like a family friend of mine and Nan's hooked me up with a friend of theirs who does lawn fertilization aeration. So his son runs like the commercial side, and it was literally like me and the guy who would just do like residential stops. We do a lot of like the North Shore, Long Island, like a lot of like deep into like Northport, Dix Hills area. Like, bro, I would go into some of these properties. They were ridiculous. Like, there was one house, it was literally parked in front, was a bright green Lamborghini Murcielago, some type of Ferrari. The only reason I knew what Lamborghini was the one from The Dark Knight that Bruce Wayne drove. Yeah. And got like T-boned.
Yeah.
I always like that because Murcielago's bat in Spanish, and I thought it was hysterical that even Bruce Wayne's day car was the Batmobile.
No, it's clever.
Yeah, but so that's why I recognized that car. But then it was like some type of like Ferrari, and then like a brand new Mustang. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So I do my job. I'm fertilizing the front lawn. I go to the backyard. He's got a full basketball court in his backyard, and then behind that, he's got a pitching net, like a batting net. I'm like, what? Like,
what a way to live.
And then I go to another house. They have like a full baseball field, like not like a full outfield, but like the full diamond in their backyard. Like, I'm like, what? Like, why?
You could just go to the park like the rest.
Exactly. It's where your taxes are going anyway.
It's an interesting thought and conversation that people don't want to have.
You also you look at the property that they're on. You look at the fucking house they're in. Like it's like you have 20 rooms. There's 5 of you. Like, why do you have 20 rooms?
America's access and excess. I think that's the whole point of being in this type of system. Now, like I said, I don't mind capitalism because, and I've said this on a 9 to 5 podcast before. Like, I think I'll figure it out.
I love making money.
Yeah, and that's cool, and I'll figure it out. I think when I get to that level, I'm going to be more inclined to help out the people at the bottom because I'll remember what it's like to, like, deal with the shit from the customers and for that $120 that you made that day. Like, I understand that dynamic of living life. But I do want to switch gears just a little bit. So we talk about employers and cultures in some of these businesses and corporations. I guess my question comes into the point of purpose, right? So, like, as a person that's worked at a ton of different jobs, my employer would always tell me or paint a picture that I'm more important than maybe I really am to this place, right? So we get into, well, you can't take a day off, or you can't leave early if you really need to, or wait, you want to leave this job to go try to better yourself and go do something else, right? The employer is always trying to paint this illusion to the public or the employee that without us, we would crumble, right? Without you being here to work this cash register, we wouldn't be able to exist. Obviously, that's not necessarily true, but they get enough employees to believe, like, oh, I am essential, I'm vital to this place being productive. When I think we know the reality is, you know, if you died tomorrow, they would just hire someone else. So what are your thoughts about the employers using purpose to try to keep employees in that?
I have two very different viewpoints, because I've been, like, when I was an RA, that was like very stressful for me because I played I played ball up at school too. I tried to do that, be an RA, balance practice, games, duty, staff meetings, having to, room checks, wellness. I mean, it was difficult. But like this was always my thing. I was like, my football schedule is very set. You know what I mean? Like, this is when it happens all the time. And you can't just tweak the meetings around that. Like, they would literally, like, I had practice 3 to 5 or 4 to 6 or whatever. We would have a staff meeting at 4:30. And you had to be there. Mandatory. And I'm like, last year's staff meetings were at 8. Like, why can't we do that again? Oh, well, it fits everyone else. I'm like, well, can I miss the meeting? Like, what's the meeting about? Oh, no, it's very important. You got to be there. Like you need this information. And it's like the same information every week. Yeah. The same 4, 5 kids got written up again. Sure. This weekend, we got to make sure that they're not on campus because they got kicked off campus for the weekend. Like, we found out about a party that's going to be here. We got to keep an eye on it. But, you know what I mean? I'm like, I knew all that because I go to school here. Like, I go on my phone. I know where the party is going to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, like, but, because of what the position was, they made you think, like, you had to be. So then, like, I would, relent and, like, have to go tell my coach, oh, I got to miss, like, an hour of practice.
But an unwillingness from them to work with you is a problem.
And because, again, it wasn't me not taking the job seriously. Like, I never missed a duty for practice. You know what I mean? Like, if I was scheduled to be on, if I couldn't, get my shift switch, like, I was there. Like, I'm never gonna miss a day. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, did my job. Like, I wrote kids up when I needed to. I got ambulances when I needed to. Did whatever my job was. I did it. You know what I mean?
They could have worked with you, and I think that doesn't happen enough. And I think that's part of the frustration as well that comes from employees. Is kind of like, you don't pay us necessarily great.
No, dude. When I was up at school, when I was an RA, as a freshman, talking to my RA, because I knew this is pretty much how I was going to have to get through the rest of my years in terms of money and being able to afford college. Yeah. I asked him, they were like, it's great, man. First year you get free room and board. If you get hired,
comes the con, right? Here comes the con.
Second year, if you get hired, then it's free room and board, half your meal plan. Third year, if you get hired and you get 3 years in a row, then all you're paying is just base tuition. Everything else is covered for you. I was like, oh my God, that's great. I can't wait. Blah, blah, blah. And he wasn't lying. This is what they were offering when I was a freshman.
He didn't tell you what everything else that came with it, though.
I got hired. No, but it gets worse because I got hired. And then at our first meeting after getting hired, they were like, oh, just a quick note. Apparently, like the ResLife budget got cut. So you're now no longer getting this old payment package. Now you're going to be getting stipends as like takeoff of your tuition. And then it was like 6,000, 9,000, 12,000 was the increment, which is like chump change compared to what you would have been getting. Like, but like essentially, like before this, it was literally essentially half your tuition was gone. Great. But then, so I get to my third year, I'm getting to that, you know, like that final.
A good incentive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have to put it on a pay freeze. You're only going to be getting 9,000 again. And I can't say shit because I need the job and I need the money. Otherwise, I can't afford to go to school. So.
No, and that's what they do. It's a where do we, the employee, like I mean, I guess they said they solved this problem with the institution of human resources, but for some reason, the more people I speak to, people don't.
There's so many jobs out there though that don't even really have an HR. Like I didn't have an HR department as an RA.
No, you did
at
not.
Starbucks, I don't have an HR department at work to go complain to. Like if I really wanted to, I can email like the corporation.
Sure.
But you know what I mean? Like, but on the flip side though, talking about Starbucks, my manager at Starbucks is amazing.
Yeah.
When like especially once I started coaching, she was great with me having to switch my schedule around. She'd always ask me, is this enough hours for you? Do you need a little bit less? Do you need a little bit more? You know what I mean?
Which is what it should be.
No, she works, you know what I mean? Like if I let her know well enough in advance, like obviously I'm not going to call her the day before hey, I can't make it in tomorrow. I got whatever. Can you help me find coverage? She's going to be like, no, that's on you. Figure it out or be here.
Gotta be responsible.
But if I hit her up like 2-3 weeks in advance, like, hey, I know for a fact, like I'm looking right now trying to get coverage. Do you think you can reach out to some people, help me out? She's perfect with it. Like she's like my manager now is very helpful with her employees. Like she knows the happier we are, the more likely we're gonna stick around.
Exactly, and I think that's the approach that they have to take. Again, just switching gears just a little bit, but I do want to talk about the structure of the 9 to 5 because I think some people that I've talked to, and I think I have a personal problem with it myself. So we get 7 days in a week. We work 5 of them. You get 24 hours in a day. You sleep 8. You go to work 8. There's 16, right? So the structure of how this whole working thing is set up doesn't work for me. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it sucks, bro. The way I work right now, today is my only day off. And you know, we were talking earlier, I spent my morning coaching.
Exactly.
So like, it wasn't even like I was up doing things and like working and, you know, at least it's football and I enjoy that. It was more, you know what I mean? But you know, but still.
The point is.
Like I work at the school Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 2. Sunday through Thursday, I'm working at Starbucks. My Sundays vary, like I'll go in like whenever, but I'm usually like a 5 to close Monday through Thursday. Friday, I don't have Starbucks at night, but I'm still school in the morning. So, you know, it's still not a full day off for me.
Yeah.
Saturday is literally, if we don't have practice, it's my only day off. And then I'm usually obviously like doing, you know, grocery shopping, chores around the house. So I don't really have a day in my schedule as of right now where I can just chill, relax, breathe.
And that's the interesting
part. It's terrible. The way we
work.
Yeah, no, the way we overwork ourselves as Americans is ridiculous.
And I've always been curious to, like, why does it have to, like, why do we only get the weekend is only 2 days? Like, why can't it be 3 days?
And we had to fight for that too.
And we did, right?
Back in the day before labor unions, it was a 6-day work week. And the only reason
12-hour shifts. Exactly. It was 12-hour shifts. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We've just, knowing what I know about American labor and where we've come from, Industrial Revolution, like those times are really bad. And I'm not to compare us to that. But I think there has been a certain point where we as Americans have gotten comfortable. And
America hit this moment in our history where, like, you know, like we were like it's, you know, it's funny talking to some people, but like America was the progressive nation.
Absolutely.
We instituted like the first real like labor laws. You know what I mean? Like we started doing, you know what I mean? We shortened our work week. You know, we birthed unions,
Sure.
all this stuff. But then I don't know, maybe like the 60s, 70s, probably like, right around there. We hit like this plateau where like we inspired most of Western, Europe, which are now like these like pinnacles of society with, their 4-day work weeks. They work, maybe 5 hours. They get 3-month paid vacation some places.
Go home for lunch and sit with
paid paternal and maternal leave.
Yeah.
Like, and they're still profiting nations. Like, they're still like first world nations.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So it doesn't have to be this way, is what you're trying to say.
Oh, 100. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Americans pigeonhole themselves into this thing, like thought bubble that we are the hardest working people in the world. Blah, blah. Like,
and
I feel like
when you say we, you don't mean all of us. You mean us folks that have to get.
No, I mean like when I say we, I mean like a collective, like the average American worker. We.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like you have like and again, like it's not my conscious belief, but I do still get this subconscious like dread when I'm home sitting chilling and I don't have any work to do. I almost get like a little bit of stress because I think I'm forgetting something.
Exactly.
Like I feel like Americans have worked themselves into this place where like if we aren't a little bit stressed about something all the time,
something's wrong.
Yeah. And it's not healthy.
It's not. And so I guess I usually try to get a half an hour. We're almost right at the end of this. So I like to end with like solutions. So like give me, for the 9-to-5ers out there on the 9-to-5 podcast, give me the solution. Give me one, because there are many. But give me the main one that you would like to see us as American 9-to-5ers or our government or someone do to increase the quality of life for those people that get up and bust ass every day and keep the country running.
That's trying to narrow it down to one is a little difficult. I would say like my biggest one would be like raising the federal minimum wage across the board. Like if you're working if you're a high school kid working a part-time job, you don't need $15 an hour.
Okay.
This is you making some extra extenuating circumstances aside. You know what I mean? Like, because then you could, we definitely both grew up with people who we definitely knew needed the money that they were making because they were really like the ones supporting their family.
Absolutely.
And again, like that's, extenuating circumstance. But on the whole, like if it's like a part-time job for you, you don't need, but like if you're working a full 40 hours, McDonald's, as a police officer, as a cashier, when a Target, or like doesn't matter what your job is, you should be making at least enough to be able to pay your bills, buy your groceries, you know what I mean, and not
be waiting on the next check.
Yeah, and be able to at least have like some money to save, you know what I mean. But but again, if you're going to do that, then you also have to make sure that greedy people don't just then go, oh, well, if I got to pay this, I'm going to jack this price up. I'm going to jack the rent up. I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like so I would say more, instead of even that, we need like a real like federal agency that has like the bite to go along with their bark. To really enforce, fairness in the workplace. Like again, like I'm not saying go socialist, like where the government's controlling businesses and
exactly.
But there needs to be like it needs to be fair. Like you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't play a game without refs. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna go play baseball, football, hockey, without a referee to make. You know what I mean? You need somebody sitting there to make sure the game's called fairly, and you need to make sure that person isn't getting money from one of the players.
No.
Because that's the biggest thing right now.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But until that happens, we're going to be in this classist Cold War where we're subtweeting at each other all the time.
No, that's a great way to put it, man. That's a great way to put it. Well, that is all I got today for the 9-to-5 podcast. Tom, I appreciate you stopping by, my guy.
Anytime, man. No
problem. A little bit about it. I'll probably definitely have you on again in the future. We're gonna do some other cool things on the 9 to 5. We'd love to have you on. I appreciate
Nice. Anytime, man. This was awesome.
you. Later. Have a good one.
Peace.